First question for you. What's negative about what you've done?
I've empowered the dark side by some of my work.
And what do you mean by that?
Technology is neutral.
Right.
It can be used for good or evil. I've worked on projects for the CIA, Justice Department, Department of Defense.
Is this the stuff, voices in the head and things like that?
Yes.
We've run into a few people that claim they got voices in their heads, they sleep inside tinfoil boxes, they do a lot of crazy things, it seems. But when they talk to us, they seem totally normal. They seem totally sane. Are these people crazy, or is the government doing this to them?
The government's doing this to them.
He's not even bothering to hide it.
They're called voice of God weapons.
So you know for a fact that these weapons that you worked on, they're being used domestically today?
Absolutely. You have to remember, the CIA has a long history of experimenting on our citizens, from LSD to...
Sure. Okay, we're talking here like going back to MK Ultra and all that in the 60s and 70s. But we were told all that stopped. Is that untrue?
Untrue. These programs continue under new names, new budgets. It's the ultimate weapon.
Are there citizens of this country that are being abused with this technology?
Worse than abused, that's a light word. They're being tortured.
So the targeted individuals aren't crazy after all.
Okay, Doctor. To deliver this, how do they get into your head? I've heard of these Gwen towers. They allegedly were used before, and now they claim that they're not used for anything.
They do match up with the properties and necessary capabilities. They easily could be broadcasting across the country messages to people and causing them extreme pain. That's part of the whole world domination strategy. Control the population from subconsciously to consciously.
And now we've got a motive. Controlling dissenters, controlling... the world, controlling you and me.
Who are the controllers? I mean, is that our president? The Federal Reserve?
No.
So these are people within our government at a certain level making these decisions, and they're not necessarily our president or our elected officials.
That's exactly right.
Wow. That makes it even more difficult because they can't be removed.
They can't be removed, and they're difficult to find. They hide in the dark crevices of our government.
You worked for these people. You worked on this. You helped to develop it.
I was naive. I did not know how the technologies were going to be put together and the ultimate weapon created.
You're not still working for them.
No.
You're unequivocally looking me right in the eye right now, and you're telling me you have no more to do with this and that you're out to expose it?
That's correct, sir.
With your background and what you know, can you give us a hint on what we ought to do?
No.
No. Is it too late?
I actually believe it's too late.
So what you're telling me, every one of us should be in fear of this because every one of us at some point will be targeted?
The technology's advanced that far.
this story on our website, kcba.com. New tonight, police call it bullying on steroids. We're talking about gang stalking. But it actually has nothing to do with the gangs that you first think of. Central Coast News reporter Candace Wynn learned more about the trend and how it's getting more dangerous because of the internet.
It makes me feel afraid.
Lawrence Gazzino claims his neighbors are gang stalking him because he plays loud music late at night and is outspoken. He said for the last year and a half, he's been systematically followed by a group of people. At one point, he said they climbed on his roof to harass him. Gazzino said gang stalking and bullying devastated his relationships with friends and, worst of all, family.
That's the worst part of it. If it was me, I would take action.
Santa Cruz Police Lieutenant Larry Richards said police are becoming more aware of gang stalking because of cyberbullying. But what is gang stalking? Basically, the victims could be driving their car or talking on their phones or walking the streets when a group of people try to systematically terrorize them. Richards said gang stalking is nothing new, but new technology is making it more common.
Gang stalking itself, they have elevated themselves to technology. So this is something that's been going on before the age of Facebook, Twitter, those other social websites. They just now have gone into those areas.
Okay, so what is it like to be gang stalked daily and nightly? First and foremost, gang stalking revolves around the art of confusion, illusion. If you're being gang stalked, you're not really meant to know how it works to begin with. That's the whole reason why it's so segregated and so many people get so many little details just to do their assignment. That way there's never one individual who can explain the overall work that's going on to you. There are people who will know more than others, but the average individual, if you can see them physically, they only know the details of what they're supposed to do. Oftentimes these people will think they're trying to help you. They're watching you at a store for whatever reason. They will know they're gang stalking you. Most of them who gang stalk you intimately and long term, they know exactly what they're doing. But a lot of the people still have very little detail of it. There's people I'm related to that I've known my whole life who didn't even know what gang stalking was, but they just told me, yeah, when you come around, people will come to us and tell us to wear red and follow you to the store and turn the brights on the cars. I've had people tell me in detail they didn't even know what gang stalking was, but they knew that somebody was coming to them and asking them to do this stuff. And the people never showed them any business cards or anything. It was just random people off the street that just show up and ask people to do assignments. This is what the average person who goes through gang stalking goes through on a daily basis. Now, again, going back to confusion, you're going to be confused. You're going to be really, really confused. I didn't know what gang stalking was. I didn't know gang stalking even existed. I think I read a blog some years ago that mentioned gang stalking. I'm a veteran esoteric researcher, and so it's in my nature to look into the unknown. But I still had no idea that gang stalking existed. I can see how it works so well now, because the public has very little interest or background on how the world works to begin with. The average person walking the streets has no idea even where they're at or what's going on around them or how the world is working. They just don't. They just don't have that knowledge, and they're not going to look for it. And if they do look for it, they'll depend on somebody to think for them and explain it to them. They're never going to pay much interest into it. So when somebody's being targeted, it works the same way. They're going to come on YouTube and they're going to see these videos of people saying, it's a satanic spiritual thing, or it's these people, or these people, and they're still going to be confused. There's still going to be a level of confusion. As you go out into your daily life, you'll see different sorts of people gang stalking you. It could be neighbors, it could be coworkers, it could be people you're related to, your wife, your husband, it could be a parent, it could be your son or daughter. They're going to be doing these assignments, and you're going to feel like you don't want to be alone. Like, you want other people to know this is happening to you. You want to feel reassured. And one of the first things that's going to happen, if somebody knows they're gang stalking you and they don't want anybody to know about it, or they don't want you they don't want to admit it, they're going to accuse you of being paranoid. That's number one. They're going to accuse you of being, first they're going to try to ignore it, then they'll accuse you of being paranoid. So then there's a lot of people walking the streets who this is happening to, and they're being told they're paranoid, or they're crazy, or they're being asked to take a medication, or they're being suspected of drug use for whatever reason. And that creates even more isolation within an individual, because you're saying, wait a minute, everywhere I go, I'm being gang stalked, I'm being targeted, this is an uncomfortable situation. Now family members or friends or people that I'm around are telling me that I'm paranoid and I'm making it up. So now it's even worse than what it was before you spoke on it. Okay, so once you start identifying the systems, the color coding, the black and the red, you get used to it and you get sensitized to it to some degree. So it becomes a way of life. So when you go out in the world, you're seeing these people following you, doing all this different stuff, you may begin to videotape it and whatnot, but society at large still has not been looking into gang stalking. They still have not been studying it. So there's always going to be a few individuals who know what's happening that you can show them, you may get some reassurance, but overall the majority of the people, you're going to run out of energy because you're going to be trying to explain to them, this is happening to me, this is happening to me. And as they're talking to you about it, they might still be doing assignments. That's the funny part about gang stalking. You can go to somebody, no matter who they are, and explain to them you're being gang stalked, and they may even agree with you or whatnot, and there'll still be assignments going on the whole time. And what an assignment is somebody will approach an individual through some sort of technological app, which is like 90% of it. The people who do the gang stalking, they're not a part of any sort of really secret, covert operation. The technology does like 90% of it for them. They get paid. The technological apps do everything. They get paid restaurant discounts, prepaid credit cards, solely off of driving past you or coming outside and wearing a color. They're not. It's an illusion. It's meant to make you think it's more than what it is. And once you get that on the wraps and you recognize that and you see that, and you see these individuals doing hand signs with each other, all this different stuff, you say, okay, now I see what's happening. All this energy is behind it. You have so many different people orchestrating this stuff, so many different people doing these assignments, and you realize that, okay, first of all, I'm outnumbered. There's a system of communication that's keeping this thing going, but you've gotten past the confusion stage, and you moved into the stage of realization, to where you see the visual assignments, the audio assignments, and you come to a situation to where now you have to create a platform for yourself. And it's a hectic way of life. It's a hectic way of life. Some people do far better than others with it, but it's still a hectic way of life. And depending on the level of gang stalking you go through. And one of the things I think that makes people the most angriest who go through gang stalking is when you see people who are gang stalking you, and this is a universal feeling that I think all people who go through gang stalking feel. You can look at the person and you can tell they're trying to get some glory out of this situation. They're gang stalking me, and I'm being gang stalked every day by several individuals. And it's been happening for a long time. And this one person thinks they're really doing something. You know what I mean? They're trying to hide behind it. They think they're really bad and tough and smart, and they're using this technology 90% of the work for them, and they think they're really doing something. And people go through gang stalking. That's why there's so much violence going on, is because an individual will be gang stalked for a long period of time, and they're already angry, they're already frustrated, they're already upset. Then people are telling them they're paranoid, and then they're seeing these individuals, and they're saying, you know, this person, look at them, they're weak, little fake paper bag people, but they think they got all this. They follow you every day and do all this stuff. And that's where a lot of frustration and anger comes in. That's why there's so many people getting gang stalked, going to drugs, out there doing these shootings, getting into degenerate behavior, is because they want to be honest people and they want to show people what's happening to them. And they're seeing these people that are, they couldn't hack it 1/10 of what that person who's going through it could hack it. They couldn't do it for 2 days. They'd lose their life. They'd lose their wife. They'd lose everything. They'd lose their mind. But you got to watch these people follow you on an every single day basis. And they don't know, they're not special. They're not doing anything. But it's just happening to you constantly. It's constantly happening to you. And so you're constantly coming across new people doing these assignments against you. And they always feel like they're part of something special and unique and whatever like that. And it's always that every single person who goes through targeting feels like that. I know they do. And I look at it like, if they only knew a 1/10 of what I've had to go through, you know what I mean? And they sit there and they have that little look on them, like they're really getting over on you. They're really getting over on you. And that's where the frustration comes in. And so it's not so much about the gang stalk. Once you get past the confusion and you know what gang stalking is, it's not so much about the tactics that are going on and the themes that are going on. You get used to that. You know, I used to walk the streets and pass out flyers and talk to people and interview people about gang stalking 24/7. You know, the tactics really aren't anything. It's the personalities that you come across. And because the gang stalking is going on constantly 24/7, that creates extra agitation. That's what really makes you mad. And I think the average person going through gang stalking is at a constant war with their character. They're at a constant war with their character. And the pressures become so strenuous on somebody that they will do things that average person wouldn't do. And then when you look at them act out in strange ways, you say, man, what's wrong with that person? What's wrong with that person? If they knew the pressure, then it would make complete sense. I look back at celebrities and different sorts of people who appear to have nervous breakdowns. And when I was younger, I used to look at them and think, what's wrong with them? Like why would they act like... Now I've learned they're not weak people, they're strong people. They never would have made it as far as their career if they weren't strong individuals. Now I'm starting to see that a lot of these people are being targeted. And they're having really strange behavioral effects because of that. And then they're being, of course, told, oh, you're paranoid, there's something wrong. And so it's a big illusion, it's a big game. And that's one of the things that you go through when you get gang stalked. Luckily, it's coming out more and more. There's more people in the news coming out talking about it and admitting it. Like the Jesse Ventura show. Jesse Ventura came across a man who admitted the God tech was real. And I always knew that these things existed. Like I said, I'm a veteran esoteric researcher. You know, I've studied psychotronic weapons and those types of things for years. And so I've always knew these things existed. But to hear it clarified made a lot of sense to me. And luckily, I've never had to experience hearing any voices. But it felt good to hear it confirmed for the other people. I've had friends of mine who go through gang stalking who said they kept hearing voices, and one of the guys was having a nervous breakdown from it. And I don't know how to give people advice to remedy that. I just don't have that. I'm more experienced with the hands-on gang stalking of the people, you know, following you, the color coding. But it feels good to see. that there's actual people standing up and saying, yeah, it's, it's real. It is what it is. And so another thing is an information thing. It's an information thing because all over the world, gang stalking is coming out here, coming out there, coming out here, coming out there, and eventually it's going to become so mainstream. It's going to be mainstream pretty soon. Far more so than what it is now. But so again, the God Tech thing, that was really good to see that. I think a lot of people, now that that's becoming out, they're going to feel relieved. People who go through that seem to have a lot more issues than the people going through regular gang stalking. Now moving on to the color coding and the patterns and stuff like that, it's being recognized as a form of bullying. It's being seen for what it is. I don't see any evidence of it being any special sort of government program or anything like that, because it happens around the world 24/7 to multiple individuals. It happens in third world countries where there are no governments, in the jungles. So how is it a government program? That doesn't make sense. The things you will have to go through, the things you will have to experience. You may be drugged. That's a big deal. That is a serious thing. When you go out and eat something and you realize that your food has been drugged, you have been drugged. That is serious. That is really serious. And a lot of people who go through gang stalking have experienced that. And there's no type of words to describe that. There's no type of words to describe the frustration and the anger that comes out of that. And not only will you be drugged, but as you get drugged, if you're at a restaurant eating, the people who were drugging you will be doing assignments on you from the restaurant. It will be networked through the restaurant, and you will be getting gang stalked as you get drugged. Then if you talk about it, then they'll look at you like you're crazy. That's one of the ultimate frustrations and aggravations of the people who go through gang stalking. They have to deal with living like that. Not many people have ever had to go through something like that. And so for the average person who deals with situations like that, it's a really hectic life. It's very hectic. The electronical weapons. If you got the money, you can get them. It's not hard to get that type of stuff. You can get that stuff if you got the money for it. You will have to deal, depending on where you're living. I know a woman, she lived in an apartment building, and her neighbors from both sides were using electronical weapons on her. It can happen in a neighborhood setting. It can happen in an office setting. These types of things have been around at least since the 50s. But there's people who go through this stuff constantly. I'm not talking about from satellites. I'm talking about from individuals who are holding this technology, who will use it upon you. So if you combine druggings, electronic weapons, constantly being followed by people wearing red and black, 24/7, not just here and there, you're talking about 24/7. Brightening with the bright lights. Brightening is a tactic they use where you get followed with bright lights. Constantly, 24/7, people put the brights on their car, the high beams, the fog lights, the parking lights, and these are newer cars, older cars, motorcycles, mopeds. People will do different sorts of tactics. You'll be walking by houses, and as you walk by the houses, it'll be networked to the people that turn the lights on right as you walk by. That's so you got to think, okay, drugging, color coding, this mimicking stuff. People will dress like you and do all different sorts of stuff. The street theater. This is a 24/7 ball of confusion that never stops. Now, if you don't expect somebody to act strange who's going through that, then you've lost your mind. Because there's people out there on the streets you can walk up to and just say a few things to them, and you'll have a fight on your hands. You can walk up to somebody and look at them a certain way, or say something to them, and the person might explode on you, right? Now imagine if that person was getting followed and drugged in electronic weapons, and color coding, and street theater, and stalked 24/7. Now imagine how they would react. You're going to come across some very bizarre people because they're going through a bizarre circumstance. That's number one. And so I think once family members and coworkers and bosses, the educational departments, universities, the difference that neighbors, once different sorts of people see how this stuff works and the types of pressure that are put on somebody, I think it'll be much easier for the individual. Now, putting that aside, it's also happening. Now, the gang stalking stuff. The gang stalking stuff is not something that can be turned off right away. The people who put it on you, there's somebody somewhere who can turn it off if they want to. So an individual is never sure of how long am I going to be going through this. That's another factor. How long is this going to last? If I get up and I go to Africa, I'll be getting gang stalked. If I go to the Kremlin, I'll be getting gang stalked. If I go to communist North Korea, I'll be getting... So how long is this going to last? That's another thing that goes through people's minds who go through gang stalking is, why is this happening and how long will it last? How long will this last? So not only are people going through this, like, these torturous situations every day, but now there's a factor in their mind of, when will this end? When will this end? When will this end? So you're going to come across a lot of different personalities of people who are getting gang stalked. A lot of people will act out strangely. They'll be confused. They'll appear unstable. It's almost like if you give somebody psychiatric drugs who doesn't have a psychiatric condition, well, then they're going to build they're going to begin to act in that way. If you start giving people psychiatric drugs, then they're going to develop the symptoms of a psychiatric patient because they're taking the drugs. So if you put somebody in a situation and create constant paranoia, now they're going to be behaving in that way. It's going to be very unstable. It's going to appear very unstable. Then you got the slander campaigns of people who want to feed on that. The people who are gang stalking the person the most, the people who have the most to lose, the individuals that... It's the individuals that the people know. Because there's a lot of people who I don't know where they are. I don't know who they are. I really don't care because I don't see them. But the average individual walking the street, the people who are gang stalking them the most, that's what they're going to rely on is the person to look unstable and the person to look like they're imagining or whatever. And I'm so glad that more people are waking up because I think people are going to get a fair chance in this world. People who are going through gang stalking are going to get a more of a fair chance. There's going to be more awareness groups. It's sort of like the crack cocaine epidemic. When it first started happening, nobody cared. Nobody cared anything about it. If you want to go get high, that's your business. Eventually, programs started emerging where people could start getting help. People could start saying, I have an addiction, I have a problem. Doctors and lawyers started coming down the crack cocaine addiction. So it was taken far more seriously. And people could get the help they needed. That's what's going on in gang stalking. It's becoming to a point to pretty soon people are going to start being able to get the help they get to whatever degree it can happen. To whatever degree it can happen. The long-term frustration, again, is something that most target individuals are going to be battling the most. Just the frustration of it, the frustration of not being believed, the frustration of people telling you that there's something wrong with you. Again, you may have to pay for somebody else's damage to you. That's a whole other part of it. So there's a whole lot of frustration that comes into this stuff. And I think for the most part, the advice I have to offer, like I do free stuff for everybody. I don't care. You know what I mean? If somebody contacts me right now and says they need help, I'm there to help them. I used to do courses all the time for people. Free. People would contact me. For a while I was getting paid for it, but for the most part it was free. People would contact me, need help, want to know, what do I do in this situation? Most of these people are lonely and depressed and are thinking about harming somebody else, or thinking about even committing suicide. That's a whole other thing. There's people, again, committing suicide from this stuff. It's not a joke. It's not anything funny. There's nothing funny about it. That's another frustrating thing is the people who gang stalk people, they think they have some sort of they think they have some sort of power over individuals, like they can harm individuals' mind and do these sorts of things to individuals, and it's funny. But that happens. I want to explain something to people that's real. Everything is funny until you get injured by it. Everything is funny until you're the one who gets injured. What I mean by that is this. You can go out and you can start doing stuff. You can go pick fights with people and argue. It's funny until it's only funny until you get hurt. When you get injured by something, and I'm not talking about physically, I'm talking about injured in any kind of way. When you get injured by something, then you see how serious it is. That's when you understand this is serious. I've been injured by this. This is serious. And that's where, that's how I feel about the people who gang stalk people. It's funny. It's a game to them. They enjoy it. But once they get injured by it, once what they've done to somebody injures them, then they'll get it. Then it'll make sense to them. Yeah, karma. What you put out comes back. And I see that for the people around the world who are going through gang stalking. The people who are gang stalking them think it's a joke. It's not a joke. You're talking about the lives of human beings. There's nothing funny about it. It's not a joke. There's nothing funny about it. And that's again, that goes back when they say you get angry about it. You do get angry about it. Because I can sit there and look at the people and I can tell they wouldn't. I'm not talking about me, I'm talking about universally. All the people who are going through gang stalking. The people who follow them through the streets and stuff, you can tell by looking at the people. They would fall apart in 2 seconds flat if anything real happened to them. They wouldn't have the juice to make it out of stuff. But they can sit there and think it's funny to play with somebody else. There's rules of karma in this universe. There are universal laws. People don't believe that, but there is. That's real. And so that's one of the things I think is with gang stalking. The people who get gang stalked, I always tell people, don't trip. Don't trip. Don't trip over it. Don't trip. There's universal laws out there that everybody has to abide by, whether they want to or not. So that's one of the biggest things I try to do is try to tell people in that way. Don't make it, don't make a big deal out of it. Don't trip over it. Well, people will, so. I'm looking at this photograph right here. This guy, I got a photograph right here of a man with question marks around him. He's questioning what's going on. A lot of people go through gang stalking. They're going to have to realize at some point that their life is never going to be the same. And how they live their life from there on out is going to be a complete change, a total change. The people they meet, the way they present themselves, the interactions they have, they may have to move. They may have, again, you can lose your work, you can lose anything. You depending on how you get gang stalked, it can break down a person completely. You got to try to make it a positive situation as much as you can, and you got to try to learn from it. Keeping an optimistic point of view is everything. If you can learn from it as much as you can, then you've won. You've come in, you've learned something, so it's benefiting you to some degree. It can make you more social. See, a lot of people get antisocial from gang stalking, and they refuse to talk to the people who are following them and doing these assignments. I don't take that approach. I encourage people to be more social. If you see somebody doing assignments on you and they're following you or whatever, or you're at a store and people are doing assignments, it's not going to hurt you to talk to them and explain to them what's going on. Because most of the time, they might not even know what gang stalking even is. Or they might give them a new interpretation of what they're doing and what's happening. It's going to open the doors for better stuff. There's always going to be somebody who will listen. There's always going to be somebody who will listen and somebody who will provide a helping hand. And it comes from the strangest places. The assistance you will get and the help you will get, it'll come from the strangest places. And So don't ever put expectations on who do I go to, how the help I'm going to get. It might be somebody walking the streets who doesn't have very much, who might be able to give you the most advice and help you the most. It's spiritual people who have the best grips on this stuff. That's a whole other subject. Is gang stalking spiritual? Yeah, it's spiritual. But it's real, though. These are real people following you and stalking you, doing assignments on you 24/7. Everything in the physical realm is spiritual. This is kind of off topic, but I don't, again, I'm an esoteric researcher, so I interject whatever I feel is helpful when I discuss gang stalking. My view on the world is everything going on in the physical realm ultimately comes from the spiritual realm anyway. It goes through a system from the spiritual realm to the physical realm. A lot of things that happen in the world, both positive and negative, disseminate from the spiritual realm. This is going to sound strange, but this is true. There's a hierarchy in the spiritual world, but every religion says this anyway. So if you're religious, it doesn't really matter because this is based off your own religion. But in the spiritual realm, it comes down through different spirits. You may call them angels or demons or whatever. Then it enters the physical realm through individuals, and it moves through different types of individuals. And so gang stalking is spiritual. There is a really spiritual nature to it. If you're going through this, it's not by any mistake. Somebody did this on purpose, but the way you deal with it, this being an attack on your consciousness, your chakra system. I go back to the root chakra, which covers survival and fear. If you're constantly seeing red, it's going to put you in panic, right? Subconsciously, consciously and subconsciously, especially if you just start going through gang stalking, you see a constant network of people wearing red following you. Red and black is seen by people all over the world who go through gang stalking. It's natural color. Now, red is black. I'm going to be specific with people on this. If you wear a red shirt at night and you go into the shade, the red will become black. Think about that. Think about that. This gets deeper into occult science. But when you constantly see these patterns of red coming at you, it's going to do something to your root chakra, which covers survival and fear, and it's going to activate, more spiritual fear within you. It manifests as psychological, but it's there for a reason. It's not by chance that they use red the most. Nothing happens by chance. So the people behind the systems of gang stalking is coming from a spiritual nature. It's coming from a spiritual background. It's an occult science. That's where it's coming from. The way it's used, how it will play on your emotions and different sorts of things. It's coming mostly from the spiritual realm. The techniques that are being employed. There's more women going through gang stalking than men. And one of the things I think with women, a lot of the women are targeted by gang stalking, and women reproduce. So if the mother is going through psychological trauma, spiritual nature but psychological trauma, they don't even have to be in the process of, they don't even have to be have a child, they don't even have to be conceiving a child, even beforehand. If they're coming from a background of trauma, then they move on to have children, have a family. The children being reproduced are going to be based off of that trauma. This gets into a lot of that, what people call, we talk about the altered personality. Gives up trauma-based mind control and things like that. Is it really mind control? No, I'd say it's more behavioral, dealing with, you could say behavioral has to do with the mind, of course, but it works a little bit different. Um, is there to create a destabilization in the family units. And so specific women may carry certain traits or have certain genetics and be targeted for different reasons. This is kind of getting off of gang stalking a little bit. It gets into I used to be big into studying Nazi scientists, people like Dr. Mengele, moving on to Dr. Jose Delgado and stuff. And these people knew those types of things. They knew those things. And so I think a lot of that has been picked up upon. A lot of that knowledge of how to create a fractured person has been picked up on and has been employed in tactics used against the family unit, used against mothers who will be later on conceiving children and stuff like that. And so this gang stalking stuff works, a lot of different ways. I see it working completely different with women than it does men. And then coming back to men, now a lot of the women, a lot of guys will go out and hook up with like women who are more easy, or they'll go pay a prostitute or something like that, or you'll deal with women who are drunk stuff. Because if you go to somebody, I'm being serious right now. If you go to somebody and you start speaking to them, and you're talking to them, and they're being asked to do assignments on you, you're not going to want to deal with that. You're not going to want to deal with it. And the caliber of women walking around aren't going to be too spiritually based anyway. That goes for men too. The culture that is creating people right now, they may say they're Christians or Muslims or whatever. They don't really believe in it. And they're very easy to manipulate. Very easy to manipulate. And a lot of the guys who go through gang stalking, they see that. And so they say, like, why am I going to go out and spend so much time trying to meet a significant other when all they're going to do is be asked to do assignments 24/7? And I don't want to deal with that. And so a lot of guys go through a situation where they may get into drugs, they may get into seeing, not to be disrespectful of women, but, hoes. I'm sorry, I don't want to use that word. I want to use that word in a serious manner. And most guys who are going, this video is for people who are going through targeting, that word fits. So a lot of guys are going to be looking for that. And it creates a very strange dynamic to the character of a person. And so that's another thing, is people may say, well, why would this person be trying to talk to, why would they be doing this and looking for these specific women doing that? If you understood the nature of what it's like to go through gang stalking and how these people get these assignments and all this stuff and how you get treated in the end, then it makes sense. It would really make sense. I haven't come across any really honest women in my lifetime. I haven't. That are, in the last couple of years, I've been seeing so much strange stuff with the gang stalking. I'm speaking about basically the gang stalking. So I've seen so many people who will do anything and people will play all kinds of games and lie and do all sorts of strange stuff. Money, greed. People want to feel feelings of importance. A lot of people will do assignments on you and gang stalk you. They'll try to feel some sort of relevance or some sort of importance. And your situation, a lot of people try to use your situation to benefit out of it in a lot of different ways. And so that's why I identify with a lot of guys who go through that. And they go out to strip clubs or see hookers and stuff like that. You know, excuse my language, but I'm trying to be real. I'm trying to be honest with people. I can identify with why a lot of guys would do that. I can identify with why a lot of women. I've spoken to women who are targeted, and a lot of them will sit there and say they have in their mind that everybody they talk to is gang stalking them. I had one woman tell me that even if the person themselves is getting gang stalked, then they'll be gang stalking them, and that may be true. I don't know. The people that they come in contact with that are getting, if a woman is being gang stalked and she meets the guy who's getting gang stalked, will that man do assignments on her? I believe so. There's probably a lot of women who that has happened. It's strange. This gang stalking stuff is some strange stuff. I'll be the first to admit that. I'm no authority on it. I'm no expert on it, but I know some strange stuff. But then it does create a level of natural paranoia. It does create a level of sensitization where sometimes people will, and you can't blame them. Well, they'll be paranoid beforehand. Really skeptical of the person. Really skeptical of the person. You can't blame them based on what they've been through. It creates a negative perspective on a lot of stuff. People who go through gang stalking on a daily level, it doesn't have to. It depends on how you interpret the world around you. But it creates a negative outlook on people and things. It can do that very easily. It can trigger a negative outlook very easily. It's given me an impression that people are looking at people in a sense that they're worthless. And that's something that I always had. I had a battle with that. I had a battle with that before, growing up, the way I perceived different sorts of people. And through the gang stalking, unfortunately, it's only enhanced it. But I try not to do that. I try to give everybody like a clean slate, especially if I don't know the person. I don't want to prejudge somebody. I don't think that's fair to do. So I try to give that person an opportunity to show me who they are from their actions and their character, right? But it's tainted my view to want to give somebody an outlook like that. Like, man, that's like worthless. Like that type of view, which is not healthy. I don't think that's healthy for anybody to have that sort of view. But gang stalking will do that. It'll give you a worthless view of people. You'll see them as worthless, no matter what their position in the world is, no matter who they are. Unfortunately, it will do that. You'll see them as just, they'll roll over backwards on their belly for some discount coupons and all this stuff. And that's the type of outlook that people who go through gang stalking have. You'll see a lot of corruption. You'll see a lot of corruption. You'll see it closely in the people that are closest to you. But you'll experience a lot of emotional corruption, spiritual, all different sorts of corruption. And it'll change your view of the world completely. And people don't know how difficult that is to go through gang. I wish there was a gang stalking day for the whole country. Or one day of the year where everybody gets gang stalked. I wish that was possible so people could see what that was like. That's about what it is. You go through gang stalking, that's about what it is. And it's another thing, when people are getting angry that go through gang stalking, they're not getting angry about what's happening right now, about being followed by this person, about being followed by that person. They're getting angry about everything that's happened before that. They're getting angry about everything that's happened every single day. And the way they've been treated and told they were paranoid and all that stuff. That's what they're getting angry. That's why a lot of that stuff is happening out there on the streets. And there's people running around with guns shooting people who are getting gang stalked and stuff. These people know what they're doing. They know it's wrong. They know it's wrong to go out and do it. They know they're not supposed to be out there harming people. But the levels of agitation, the frustration that they're going through is creating such a pressure on them. It's creating such a pressure on them that everything. They think of this happened, and this happened, and this happened, 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 and it creates such a level of agitation on the person. It molds the person to doing something they normally wouldn't do. And people will look at it's unfortunate, man. Like that guy, Myron, what's his name? Myron, I did a video on him and I forgot his name. That's not right. Myron Fay. I was going to say Myron May, Myron Fay. But I don't know that man. But I know he didn't have there was nothing psychologically wrong with that man. He wasn't paranoid. He was being gang stalked. And he was having some really troubling issues with it. And he went onto some campus with a gun. But Myron May didn't go shoot. My perspective of Myron May is Myron Fay. Myron Fay didn't go shoot anybody because he was paranoid or because he had some sort of mental issue or because he was being gang stalked that day. Myron Fay went and did that because he was being gang stalked every single day for a long period of time. He just got tired of it. Same thing with that young man who took a gun and I guess the story went, who knows what really happened. I guess the story went that he killed 3 police officers. That man didn't do that because I wasn't there. I don't know him. So I can't, but from my perception of the event that happened is he didn't do that because there was something wrong with him or because he was a loose cannon or because he was just being gang stalked that day. He did that out of a series of things that happened to him over time, and he never got the support. Nobody believed him it was happening. Nobody was there listening to him. Nobody was there helping him. And all people were doing was gang stalking him. All people were doing was doing assignments on him. And so he probably looked at everything that was happening to him over time and just went out, which is the ultimate defeat. To me, that's the ultimate defeat of being gang stalked, because you're saying that these people have the power over you to get you to go and do something like that. He wouldn't have done that had he not been getting gang stalked. Same thing with the Myron guy. They wouldn't have done that had they not been gang stalked. So to me, that's, I respect their battle with gang stalking. But at the end of the day, they're doing that because they didn't get the help that they needed. But they're proving that they allowed the gang stalking to have some sort of thing on them. But I understand where they're coming from, though. I completely understand where they're coming from. 100%. In their frustration, in their agitation, they look back at all the things that happened. That's why I always encourage people to try to be as creative as possible who are getting gang stalked. I never allowed... There's been some things that have happened, but ultimately, I never tried to allow any outside force to have people who are gang stalking me have any serious effect on me. There's been some strenuous things that I went through where I've reacted irrationally. Well, it wasn't irrational. It was very rational based on the circumstance. It wasn't irrational. It was pro-rational based on the circumstance. But that's a whole nother thing, is the people who gang stalk people, they're really meaningless. If you get gang stalked by somebody, the person is not worth anything more than what they've been given to do the assignment. Their relevance to you is nothing more than the assignment, but if you put more emphasis on it, then it will grow into something much bigger. And that's the problem with organized stalking, is people are being stalked systematically every single day. And so when they see the same individual stalking them every single day, sometimes for years, the relevance of that person will increase, because this person, you're seeing a person stalk you. So their relevance increase, even though the person is nothing. I mean, average person getting gang stalked, you're being followed by certain individuals. If they weren't gang stalking you, you wouldn't be thinking about them. But once they stalk you every single day, then their relevance becomes more than what it is, far more than what it is. And so there's a whole, I wish there were doctors, or I wish there were real psychologists and real doctors who would do some sort of formal analyzation of somebody going through gang stalking. And, you know, be for real about it. You know, this is too great of a country not to have real people, you know, trying to analyze this stuff for real. But and the thing about gang stalking, is it's never going to stop. It's never going to stop. There's always going to be people getting gang stalked and people doing these assignments. It's always going to be happening. As it comes to more and more attention of the mainstream world, there will be more things that happen. It'll be exposed much more easily. I totally believe that. It's going to come to a point to where when people say they're being gang stalked, it's going to be taken a lot more seriously, based on the rate of gang stalking that's going on, and that it's finally coming out more. It's coming out here and there more and more and more and more. And so the common knowledge of it, when somebody says, "Hey, I'm being gang stalked," people are going to take more of an emphasis on it and say, "Really? Who are you being gang stalked by? Like, what colors are they wearing?" Those types of things. It's not going to be just, "You're paranoid. I'm scared to look into it because I'm part of it," type of thing. It's going to be somebody who's going to sit there and say, "Who's doing this?" And be serious about it. And actually take what the person has to say seriously and try to help the person. So something bad doesn't happen, or the person doesn't end up, you know, I mean, you would think it would make sense. I mean,